It's a heavy, confusing feeling when you realize you're still broke, even when you're making more money than ever before. You look at your bank account and the math just doesn't make sense. You've hit the milestones, you've gotten the raises, and yet the financial breathing room you were promised hasn't arrived. The reality is, most of us are running on a high-speed treadmill we didn't even realize we stepped on. We think we're building a life, but we're actually just servicing a performance. There is a silent, aggressive drain on your freedom that has nothing to do with your salary and everything to do with a cultural lie you've been fed since birth. If you feel like you're drowning while everyone else seems to be floating, it's not because you aren't working hard enough. It's because you're trapped in a cycle designed to keep you exhausted and empty-handed. Most people will spend their entire lives wondering where it all went, never realizing that the exit door was right in front of them the whole time. But to see it, you have to look past the glittering surface and confront a truth that feels uncomfortable. Genuine clarity isn't found in a quick tip. It only settles in once you see the full, hidden landscape of how you've been living. So, let's begin. It's funny how we've been trained to recognize success. We've been taught that it has a specific look, a specific sound, a specific gleam. We see a high-end European SUV idling at a red light, the sunlight, catching that perfect metallic finish. And we think to ourselves, there, that's it, they've made it. We see the designer labels, the $1,000 watches, the houses that look more like museums than homes, and we subconsciously check our own pulse. We feel that tiny, sharp pang of not enough. But what if everything you admire is misleading you? Thomas Stanley spent a lifetime looking behind the curtain of American wealth, and what he found is, well, it's a bit uncomfortable. It's a quiet slap in the face to everything our Instagram feeds tell us is true. He discovered a strange, almost mathematical irony. The people who work the hardest to act rich are usually the ones who are the furthest from actually being rich. They are the glittering rich, people who have the income of a king but the balance sheet of a beggar. It's a performance, a high-stakes, high-cost theatrical production where the costumes cost more than the actors can afford. And the most heartbreaking part? We're the ones buying the tickets. We're the ones watching them, taking notes, and wondering why we can't seem to keep up. Not realizing that the person we're envying is often just one missed paycheck away from a total collapse. Think about the neighborhood where the lawns are manicured to within an inch of their lives, where every driveway is a showroom. Stanley found that in these status neighborhoods, the level of actual wealth, the kind of money that stays in a bank and grows while you sleep, is surprisingly low. Because wealth is what you don't spend. It's the car you didn't buy, the watch you didn't upgrade, the square footage you decided you didn't actually need. But our culture doesn't applaud what it can't see. No one stops you on the street to congratulate you on your diversified index funds. No one gazes longingly at your paid-off mortgage or your modest 10-year-old sedan. So, we feel this pressure, this heavy, invisible weight to prove our worth through our receipts. We've been sold a lie that wealth is a lifestyle, a collection of toys, when in reality, real wealth is quiet, it's boring, it's often invisible. It's the guy in the faded denim jacket at the hardware store who owns 3 apartment complexes and hasn't had a car payment since the 90s. He doesn't look like success. He looks like a guy. And that's the secret he's keeping. Most of the people who are actually truly wealthy in this country don't live in the rich neighborhoods. They don't shop at the luxury malls. They don't have to, because they aren't trying to convince you of anything. The moment you stop trying to act rich is the moment you actually have a chance to become it. But But it's hard, isn't it? To walk past the shiny things and feel nothing. To realize that the social ladder we're all climbing is leaning against the wrong wall. We spend so much energy trying to look like we've arrived that we never actually start the journey. We're so busy maintaining the image of a winner that we're losing the actual game. We tell ourselves we deserve it. The treat culture that tells us a $60 candle or a new gadget is the cure for a long Tuesday. But every time we buy into the image, we're trading a piece of our future freedom for a moment of temporary applause from people we don't even like that much. It's a cycle, a loop of wanting, buying, and then needing more to maintain the high. And at the center of it all is a profound misunderstanding of what money is actually for. We think it's a tool for consumption, for showing the world our rank in the tribe. But the truly wealthy, they see it as a tool for autonomy. They know that the more you spend to look like someone, the less power you have to actually be someone who is beholden to no one. The lie is so loud, isn't it? It shouts from every billboard and every screen. It tells us that our value is tied to our volume. And yet, there's this lingering feeling, this quiet realization that the more we accumulate to show off, the heavier our lives seem to get. The stuff starts to own us. We think we're buying symbols of respect, but we might just be buying ourselves a very expensive cage, and the lock on that cage is forged from the very things we thought would set us free. It's the strange tax of looking the part. You buy the house in the prestigious zip code because you've worked hard, and you feel like you've earned the right to live among your peers. But then, you realize your peers have a very specific lawn service, and their kids go to a very specific summer camp, and suddenly, your perfectly good, reliable sedan looks, well, it looks like a sore thumb in a neighborhood full of German engineering. So you upgrade. Not because the old car broke, but because the environment demanded it. That's the hidden bill. The price of a status symbol isn't just the number on the sticker, it's the endless, exhausting cost of the lifestyle that has to rise up to meet it. It's the constant upkeep of an identity that isn't even yours. We think we're buying respect, but usually we're just buying a ticket to a race that has no finish line. There's a quiet irony in it. Working 80 hours a week at a job that stresses you out, just so you can afford a house that you're too tired to enjoy, filled with things you bought to impress people who are also too tired to notice. It's a circle of exhaustion. And the truth is, the bill always comes later. It comes in the form of the years you can't get back. The Sunday afternoons spent worrying about the overhead. The golden handcuffs that feel a lot more like regular handcuffs the longer you wear them. We tell ourselves we're investing in our image, but real investments pay you. Status symbols, they just eat. They eat your cash, sure, but more importantly, they eat your focus. They demand your attention. They insist on being washed, insured, repaired, and eventually replaced when the newer version comes out and makes yours look dated. It's funny, in a dark sort of way, how we've convinced ourselves that freedom looks like a walk-in closet full of leather goods. But true freedom is actually the ability to walk away. It's the power to say no to a promotion you don't want. It's the ability to quit a toxic environment without checking your bank account first. When you spend your life acting rich, you're essentially trading your walk-away power for a better view from your prison window. You're choosing to be a high-consumption pawn instead of a low-consumption king. And we do it because we're afraid. Deep down, there's this nagging fear of being ordinary. We think that if we don't have the markers of success, we'll disappear. We'll just be another person in the crowd. We use our spending as a way to shout, "Look at me! I'm doing okay, see? I have the watch. I have the shoes." But the most successful people Stanley ever met, they didn't feel the need to shout. They were perfectly content being ordinary in the eyes of their neighbors. They found a quiet, smug sort of joy in knowing their net worth was 10 times higher than the guy next door, who was leasing a lifestyle he couldn't afford. There's a peace in that, a lightness. When you stop caring about the performance, you suddenly have so much more energy for the actual life you're living. You stop being a curator of your own museum and start being a human being again. But it's a trap that's set so carefully. It's built on the idea that more is always better. We've become a society of people who are rich in things and poor in time. We've optimized our closets but neglected our souls. We've forgotten that every luxury we add to our lives is another tether, another reason we have to keep grinding, another reason we can't afford to take a breath. We think we're getting ahead, but we're really just increasing the speed of the treadmill. And the faster it goes, the more we have to focus just on staying upright, which leaves very little room for wondering where the hell the treadmill is even taking us. We tell ourselves it's about quality. I'm buying the best because it lasts, we say, as we replace it 2 years later. We're experts at lying to ourselves. We call it treating ourselves, when we're actually just burying ourselves. And as the piles of stuff grow higher, the horizon of our actual possibilities starts to shrink. We become so anchored by what we own that we forget what it feels like to be light, to be mobile, to be in control. We start to realize that the most expensive thing you can buy is a life you're too busy to actually live. And once you've bought into that life, you start to notice that the math of your days doesn't quite add up anymore. It's the hidden surcharge on the dream. We talk about the cost of things in dollars, but the real currency, the one they don't print more of, is our attention. Have you ever noticed how much mental bandwidth it takes to maintain a successful image? It's the constant low-grade hum of management, the scheduling of the cleaners, the research into the next upgrade, the subtle, exhausting work of making sure your social circle sees you exactly how you want to be seen. It's a full-time job that pays $0 and costs you everything. The real millionaires Stanley studied, the ones who didn't just have high incomes but actually kept the money, they were obsessed with a different kind of thrift. They weren't just stingy with their cash, they were protective of their time. They realized that if you spend your morning worrying about a scratch on your luxury car, or your afternoon comparing the specs on a new home theater system, you're not just spending money, you're spending your life. There's a question we rarely ask ourselves as we're scrolling through the latest must-haves at 11 p.m. Who is actually controlling your day? Is it you? Or is it the pile of commitments and symbols you've gathered around yourself? When your lifestyle inflates, your choices shrink. Every luxury habit is a new master you have to serve. If you get used to the 5-star hotels and the premium everything, you've effectively raised the price of admission for your own happiness. You've made it harder to be satisfied. And that's the ultimate irony of modern success. We work so hard to get to a place where we can finally relax, but the very act of getting there creates so much noise and complexity that relaxation becomes impossible. The real wealth grows when your attention is intentional, not scattered. It's the ability to sit in a quiet room and not feel like you're missing out on something. It's the freedom to focus on a project, a person, or a hobby, without the ghost of a credit card bill whispering in the back of your mind. We've been conditioned to think that busy is a status symbol. We wear our burnout like a badge of honor. We say, "I'm so slammed," as if it means, "I'm so important." But to the person who actually understands wealth, being perpetually slammed is just a sign of poor management. It's a sign that your stuff is running you rather than the other way around. Real success is having a wide open Tuesday. It's having the mental space to think 3 years ahead instead of just 30 minutes ahead. But lifestyle inflation is a slow, creeping vine. It starts with one nicer thing: a slightly better coffee, a slightly better brand of jeans. And for a week, it feels great. Then, it just becomes the new baseline. The luxury becomes the minimum. And suddenly, you have to work harder just to feel normal. It's like running on a treadmill where the incline keeps ticking up, and you're so focused on not falling off that you haven't noticed the beautiful scenery passing by outside the window. We trade our curiosity for comfort. We trade our spontaneity for security. We spend our best years building a fortress of things, only to realize we've built it so high we can't see the sun anymore. And we do it all because we're told that this is what winners do. But what if the real winners are the ones who decided to stop playing that particular game? The ones who looked at the shiny, high-speed lane and thought, actually, I'm good right here. There's a quiet power in being unimpressed by the things everyone else is chasing. When you stop letting the culture dictate what your time is worth, you start to reclaim the pieces of yourself you've been selling off. You realize that the most valuable thing you own isn't in your garage or your closet. It's the quiet, unhurried space between your thoughts. But getting to that space, that requires a kind of honesty that most of us aren't ready for. Because it's not just about the numbers. It's about why we're so desperate to spend them in the first place, and why we keep reaching for our wallets when what we're really trying to reach for is a way to feel okay. It's a vulnerable thing, isn't it? To admit that a purchase was actually an emotional band-aid. We like to think of ourselves as rational actors, calculating, logical, weighing the utility of every dollar. But if we're being honest, spending is rarely about the purchase. It's about the feeling we hope the purchase will carry inside it. Sometimes we buy things because we're angry. Angry at a boss who doesn't see us. Angry at a world that feels increasingly out of our control. So we walk into a store or we open an app and we exert the only power we feel we have left. The power to acquire. For 30 seconds, as the transaction clears, we are the ones in charge. We are the ones being served. It's a very expensive way to vent. Other times it's resentment. We see someone else, someone we don't even particularly like, flaunting a lifestyle they probably can't afford, and something small and primal inside us snaps. We think, if they have that, why don't I? I work harder, I'm smarter, I deserve the same reward. And so we buy the reward. But we're not buying the item. We're trying to buy back our sense of fairness. The truth is, wealth requires emotional maturity long before it requires financial discipline. It's easy to follow a budget when your heart is quiet. It's almost impossible when you're trying to drown out the noise of feeling less than. Think about how much of our leisure spending is actually just coping. The expensive cocktails after a soul-crushing week. The retail therapy that we joke about, but which actually feels like a survival mechanism. The high-end entertainment that promises to distract us from the fact that we're spending 40 hours a week doing something we hate to pay for the distractions we need to forget it. It's a heavy cycle. Stanley noticed that the real millionaires, the ones who stayed that way, didn't use money as an emotional regulator. They didn't view a bad day as a reason to go shopping, and they didn't view a good day as a reason to blow off steam. They had a different relationship with their impulses. They realized that if you use money to fix your mood, you'll eventually run out of money before you ever actually fix the mood. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom by pouring in more expensive water. The water isn't the problem. The hole is. We live in a culture that is designed to keep that hole open. Every advertisement is a subtle reminder of a deficiency you didn't know you had. every limited time offer is a manufactured anxiety. We are constantly being nudged to stay in a state of emotional reactivity. Because people who are calm and content are very, very hard to sell things to. If you're okay with who you are, you don't need the logo to tell the story for you. But staying okay is hard, especially when you're tired. Exhaustion is the greatest enemy of wealth. When we're burned out, our willpower is the first thing to go. We reach for the convenience, we reach for the luxury, we reach for the thing that promises, just for a second, to make the world feel a little softer, a little more accommodating. We trade our long-term security for a moment of short-term comfort. And then the guilt sets in, which, ironically, makes us feel worse, which makes us want to spend more to feel better again. Breaking that loop. It's not about spreadsheets. It's not about finding a better interest rate or a side hustle. It's about sitting with the discomfort. It's about asking yourself, in that quiet moment before you hit buy, what you're actually trying to soothe. Are you buying a watch? Or are you trying to buy the feeling of being respected? Are you buying a new car? Or are you trying to outrun the feeling of being stuck? Wealth is what happens when you stop needing your money to do the emotional heavy lifting for you. It's the freedom that comes when your self-worth is no longer on the auction block. But that kind of independence, it doesn't look like what we were promised. It doesn't feel like a celebration. In fact, it feels a lot more like a quiet, steady kind of peace. And it's a peace that comes from finally realizing that wealth whispers. It never performs. There's a strange, quiet dignity in no longer needing to be the most interesting person in the room. When you step onto this path, you start to value a different kind of currency: independence. Not the I can buy anything kind of independence, but the I don't need anything from you kind. It's the realization that happiness actually increases when your spending aligns with your own private values, rather than someone else's public impressions. We've spent so much of our lives thinking that success is a mountain we have to climb, where the higher you get, the more people can see you. But the real millionaire, the one Thomas Stanley spent decades studying, knows that the best view is actually from the foothills, where you're settled, secure, and largely invisible. Real success is the absence of financial performance. It's the moment you realize that your bank account isn't a scoreboard. It's a buffer between you and the whims of the world. It's the ability to look at a trend, a new gadget, or a must-have lifestyle upgrade and feel absolutely nothing. No pull, no pressure, no pang of missing out. Because when you prioritize peace over the image of peace, the math of your life finally starts to work in your favor. We've talked about the weight of the status cage and how the bill for looking rich always comes due in the form of your time and your focus. We've looked at those moments in the middle of the night where we wonder who is actually in control of our days. And we've had to be honest about the emotional roots of it all, how we've used consumption to quiet our anger or soothe our insecurities. But when you weave it all together, you see the larger landscape. The lie we were taught about wealth was never just about money. It was a lie about belonging. We were told that if we bought the right things, we'd finally be part of the club. We didn't realize that the club was just a group of people equally tired, equally stressed, and equally afraid of being ordinary. The quiet path is different. It's the path where you embrace being ordinary on the outside so you can be extraordinary on the inside. It's where you protect your time more fiercely than your paycheck. It's where you realize that a 10-year-old car that's paid for is a much greater luxury than a brand new one that keeps you awake at night. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you've been trading away to maintain a performance. When you stop acting rich, you finally give yourself permission to be free. You stop being a curator of a museum that no one is visiting, and you start being the owner of your own life. You see the whole picture now. Wealth isn't the Ferrari in the driveway. It's the quiet knowledge that you could leave your job tomorrow and be fine for years. It's not the designer label. It's the lack of stress when the market dips. It's not the applause of the crowd. It's the silence of a home that is truly yours, paid for by a life that was lived on your own terms. It's a grounded way to live. It's a way to be human again in a world that wants you to be a consumer. I wonder, where are you on this path? Maybe you've felt that weight we've been talking about. Maybe you've realized that some of the things you're working for aren't actually things you want. If you've had a moment where you realized the performance was costing you too much, I'd love to hear about it. Sometimes just putting those thoughts into words in the comments can make the path ahead feel a little clearer for all of us. If this conversation felt like something you needed to hear today, it would mean a lot if you'd let me know. Maybe by leaving a like or staying with us for the next journey by subscribing. It helps this quiet corner of the internet grow, and I'm glad you're a part of it. Take a breath today. You don't have to perform for anyone. Until next time. Stay quiet, stay free, and just be you.